It's that special time of year again around DC. It is cherry blossom season. We're going to spend the next half an hour talking about all things blossom.
Yeah, so we're going to explain how we determine when the trees hit peak bloom and all the celebrations happening in our area and how you can, get in on the fun, how to find your way down there. Thanks for joining us for the WUSA9 Cherry Blossom Special. I'm Chief Meteorologist Topper Shutt.
And I'm meteorologist Caitlin McGrath. We are quickly approaching peak bloom. That's when 70% of the cherry trees around the tidal basin are in bloom.
So now the past 6 years, we've actually hit peak bloom during the month of March. The earliest peak bloom, according to the National Park Service, was March 15th, and that was back in 1990. We came close to that in 2024, hitting peak on March 17th. Only twice in the last 10 years has peak bloom occurred on or after April 1st, the most recent being 2019. The latest peak we've ever had was April 18th, back in 1958. So we're right in the middle of those dates last year, with peak bloom hitting on March 28th. Now, there are a few factors we consider when we are predicting peak bloom.
Yeah, that's right. I talked with Mike Litters from the National Park Service to see how they track the progress of our cherry trees.
There is one particular Yoshino tree that tends to run about 2 weeks or 10 days in advance of the rest of the trees around the tidal basin.
It's called the indicator tree, and for good reason.
It does give us a reliable indicator every year of where the rest of the trees are likely to fall in the bloom cycle.
But it takes a lot more than a tree to predict peak bloom.
We're looking at the historic record. What's happened in the last several years, 10 years going back. But we're also, of course, looking at the near and long range forecast. If we're expecting a warming trend over the next month, that's probably going to influence us to call a little bit earlier. If we're expecting average or even colder temperatures, that's obviously going to push it back a little farther.
And warming global temperatures have been undeniably pushing peak bloom earlier and earlier.
Over the last 10 years or so, probably even a little bit longer, we are seeing the trend almost every year with peak bloom coming earlier than that average date of April 3rd or April 4th.
Now, the trees have to go through several stages before we see those iconic pink and white blooms, and weather plays a big role in that process.
Yeah, it sure does. So, obviously warmer temperatures can help the cherry blossoms bloom faster, while cold weather slows them down. So the National Park Service tracks these 6 stages of the blooming cycle. And let's tell you a little bit about each. First up, green bud, and that's when you can just barely see some color breaking through those tightly packed buds. Just like last year, we hit this stage, really weird, exactly the same day, March 11th.
Yeah, despite a very different lead up. Now, Stage 2 is florets visible, when you start to see a little bit more green popping through. This happened this year on Friday, March 13th. Stage 3 is extension of florets. We reached this halfway mark on Monday, March 16th.
Okay, so stage 4, everyone's favorite one to say, peduncle elongation. That's when the buds really start to stretch out and you can see some pink on the tips. We reached this stage Saturday, March 21st.
And the 5th stage is where which one we hit on March 23rd. That's where you can see the blossoms are folded onto themselves, just waiting for the right time to open up. Now, when this happens, it means we have officially hit the final stage, peak bloom. The National Park Service says this is when 70% of the Yoshino cherry trees around the tidal basin have bloomed.
So here's how quickly the blooms progressed last year. We hit stage 1 on March 11th, same as this year. Stage 2, 3, and 4 all happened the following week. And then 3 days after stage 4, we hit stage 5. And then peak bloom just occurred 5 days later on March 28th.
So how long does that peak bloom last? The National Park Service says the Yoshino trees typically bloom for several days if certain things cooperate, right? And other types of cherry trees around the area bloom well beyond that.
Yeah, so there are a few factors that can impact this. Calm weather can help extend the bloom time, along with colder weather. Once we get to peak, we actually kind of want it to be cold or cool. That keeps the trees from leafing out. So we don't need winds. Cool weather is okay. Too much rain or wind can shorten it, and of course, people can play a role too.
Yeah.
We ask everyone to help us be a cherry blossom tree protector. If you're down here once we get to peak bloom, we ask you, of course, don't pick the blossoms, don't break branches off, don't climb the trees. A lot of them are older, more fragile than you might think. And when possible, stay to the sidewalks, the paved walkways. Keep all that foot traffic off the fragile tree roots.
And it's actually illegal to shake, break, or take the blossoms. So please do not touch those branches or blossoms.
Yeah, don't put little Johnny in the tree for a Christmas pick. No, that's frowned upon. All right, we've been through much colder, snowier winter than recent years, and the cold temperatures hit early in December. In January, we had the snowcrete fall. Temperatures at National stayed below freezing for 9 consecutive days. And the Arctic air stuck around through February.
But the good news is the trees are very resilient. They can withstand the harsher weather better than other plants. So we talked to a local arborist to explain how weeks of cold temperatures could impact the blooms.
Cold weather doesn't really hurt trees. If it is drastically cold for a long period of time, and I mean in the sub-zero temperatures, that can really affect a tree. Not so much the blooms as much as just the frost cracking within the trees. Up in northern Minnesota, where it's 0 degrees for weeks at a time, you're looking at those things. Here in DC, we don't see much of that, if ever. But it doesn't affect the blooms significantly. Actually, it kind of protects them, so they stay colder longer. And the biggest challenge for blooms in the springtime, especially in the mid-Atlantic, is the roller coaster of weather that we have. In past years, we've had, Februaries that are in the 70s and then March in the 30s. And what happens then is that the trees think that it's warm, so they start to bloom, and then it gets cold and it slows them down. Then it gets warm and they bloom. And that takes a lot of energy. If those buds freeze and fall off and they put new buds on, that expends a lot of energy for those trees. So a slow, steady cold like we had this year is actually great for these trees. It delays the start of the bloom time, which delays the time that the trees are blooming for. Typically, the cherries bloom for about 10 days. Now, that's all weather dependent, if we have peak bloom on April 2nd, like WUSA9's predicting, and then we have a late snowstorm, April 5, or if we have a significant windstorm, all those blooms are going to blow away and it's going to cut our festival short.
Organizers tried to plan the National Cherry Blossom Festival during peak bloom, but even if it's off by a few days, there are plenty of events happening before peak bloom and after.
Yeah, those days we had in the 80s, they really accelerated the process this year. So the festival itself runs through April 12th, and meteorologist Grace Thornton is highlighting some of the biggest events.
The opening ceremony is on March 21st at Constitutional Hall. This one is a fan favorite, the Blossom Kite Festival. It's happening March 28th on the Washington Monument grounds. There are plenty of opportunities to enjoy live music during the Cherry Blossom Festival. You'll find daily live performances at the Tidal Basin with Bloomfest. Bloomaroo at the Wharf is happening March 28th. There's an event for the whole family happening that same day with drumming, dancing, and a live DJ at the Smithsonian American Art Museum Cherry Blossom Family Celebration. And new this year is the Kamali Music Blossom Fest. It's happening March 29th at Hook Hall on Georgia Avenue Northwest. Also new this year, the festival is expanding into DC's Ward 8. You can check out the Oxen Run Picnic and Kite Fly on March 29th. If you're looking for some street fair vibes, check out Sakura Sunday at National Harbor on March 29th and 30th. Then Pedalpalooza is happening at Navy Yard on April 4th. The evening ends with a fireworks show. And the Sakura Matsuri Japanese Street Festival is happening on Pennsylvania and Constitution Avenues the last weekend of the festival, April 11th and 12th. The festival culminates with the National Cherry Blossom Festival Parade down Constitution Avenue on April 11th. The good news, you can find blossoms, food, art, and music at pretty much every event. There are also plenty of opportunities to learn about the history of the blossoms, too.
Okay, thanks, Grace. So blossoms are in bloom on Metro, with especially designed buses, trains, and smart trip cards.
Yeah, and it really is one of the best ways to see the blooms with so many extra people in town. Traffic specialist Terry Horenstein shows us how to get to the Tidal Basin without the traffic headache.
You see people from all over the world coming to see those cherry blossoms.
My wife and my son, we love going downtown and for the festival every year. It's something we've really come to enjoy every year.
With more than 1 million visitors heading to the same spot to see the cherry blossoms, traffic can be a nightmare.
Traffic is already bad in DC, but cherry blossom season, especially around the basin, it gets crazy.
They're awesome, but the city gets rather congested, difficult to navigate, but they're beautiful. So of course, iconic.
The best bet to avoid stress and see the blooms leave early, and take the metro.
So we try to encourage our customers to get into the downtown area earlier and leave a little later to avoid peak crowds. Transit is the easiest way to reach the tidal basin. You don't have to deal with traffic. You don't have to deal with parking. Just safe, reliable, and frequent service to get in and out of the downtown area.
Oh, Metro, definitely. It's just so much easier, convenient than driving.
If you do plan on taking the Metro, which we said it's your best bet, you can take the orange, the silver, or the blue lines. You take those to Smithsonian. That's the closest Metro stop to the tidal basin, and then it's about a 10-minute walk.
And you have other options too.
Smithsonian Station is where everything happens outside of the station. So that station gets very crowded. So we also encourage our customers to use LaFont Plaza or Federal Triangle to make their trip quicker with a slightly longer walk.
So put on those comfortable shoes, hop on the nearest train.
Let's go.
Head down to see the blossoms in all their glory.
I love how the city comes alive, all things pink, all things floral. It's just a very festive and time to bring everyone from all over the world together.
Terry Hornstein, WUSA9.
So true. That's when we mark spring here in the Metro. All right, so the tidal basin looks a little bit different now.
Yeah, it sure does. Long-awaited reconstruction of the seawall is done ahead of schedule and under budget.
Wow.
I talked with the National Park Service about how this project will impact your visit.
As we look around today, we see it's just sort of final punch list items, last trees going into the ground. They're putting in the posts for the post and chain to separate the trees from the walkway. It is completely different from last year, a whole world of difference than it was 2 years ago.
The new seawall is substantially above the water line, which means we should no longer see the flooding that inundated the walkways and the tree roots twice a day, every day for years.
The seawall has been anchored into bedrock, so we're not going to have the problems of it continuing to settle. The walkways are wider, so it'll be able to accommodate more people when we're in that busy cherry blossom season.
All of this completed 8 months earlier than planned and $30 million under budget. Ahead of the construction, the National Park Service did need to remove more than 100 cherry trees, including the iconic but waterlogged Stumpy. The good news, all of the trees are being replaced, plus some.
The project required us to take out about 158 cherry trees. We are replanting 258 cherry trees in the work zone, and we have an additional 85 that are going around outside of the work zone. So cherry trees alone, we have a net gain of almost 200 cherry trees around the tidal basin. Same thing with the other varieties, the magnolias and the hollies that we had to take out, replacing more than we took out.
While so much has changed, the same detours from last cherry blossom season remain in place, giving the freshly planted trees time to settle in.
We want the roots to take hold before we unleash the throngs of people that we know are coming down for cherry blossom season. So the entire walkway around the tidal basin is open as it was last year, but it is a detour a little bit set back from the tidal basin. People will be able to see all the new trees, they'll be able to see the new seawall, but won't be able to use these walkways and probably until the end of April.
Now remember, the tidal basin isn't the only place to check out the cherry blossoms.
No, if it's too difficult to navigate those big clouds or if walking long distance is a challenge, try these options instead. So we're looking at try checking out the cherry blossoms at night. That's a good time. Night sky and the lights on the monument really bring out the blossoms' color, and it's also a great time for pics.
Yeah, and if you don't mind the water, there's a cherry blossom cruise down the Potomac River. The 45-minute ride is a boat ride that includes a DC history lesson and provides scenic views of the cherry blossoms and Washington's most famous landmarks. The water taxi in Alexandria, Virginia is another option on the water.
That's a pretty good option. Now, elsewhere in D.C., check out Congressional Cemetery in Southeast, the walled-in Bishop's Garden at the National Cathedral, or Cherry Hill. That's located Dunbarton Oaks in Georgetown.
Or you can check out the cherry blossoms from the comfort of your own home. You can check it out on bloomcam.org. And the blossoms aren't exclusive to D.C.
No, you can find them all around the metro area. In Montgomery County, check out the Kenwood neighborhood in Bethesda or Brookside Gardens in Wheaton.
Yeah, Prince George's County also has 200 okame cherry trees around the National Harbor. They typically bloom a little earlier than the trees around the tidal basin. And you can also check out the blooms around Harbor Trail and the Gaylord National Resort and Convention Center.
And in Fairfax County, you're going to find cherry trees blooming around the Meadowlark Botanical Gardens in Vienna, the Van Gogh Bridge in Reston, and also along the Washington and Old Dominion Trail. Now, all of these areas should have a similar bloom time to the blossoms in D.C., but, some may differ by a few days.
Yeah, now that you know where to see the blossoms, meteorologist Grace Thornton shares what you need to know before you go.
If you want to see the cherry blossoms in DC this season, here's what you need to know. Dress for success. Comfortable walking shoes are a must. The Tidal Basin Loop is about 2 miles. Additional stops on the National Mall will definitely help you reach that 10,000 step goal. Steps can add up if you come during busy times or have to park far away. For the rest of your outfit, check the forecast. Here in the DMV, it can be quite chilly during late March and early April. Rain and wind often factor into the forecast, but luckily, sunshine and warmth are possible too. For a rainy viewing of the blossoms, opt for a raincoat instead of an umbrella. Umbrellas can bump into delicate trees and damage them. It's always recommended that you bring a bag to carry your items too. Sunscreen, sunglasses, wallet, keys, and snacks. Be cautious of how much you pack though. Heavy backpacks or wagons will tire you out. Next, be respectful. The cherry blossoms are a national treasure, symbolizing the long-standing friendship between the United States and Japan. It is illegal to touch the cherry trees, step on their roots, tug on branches, or pull off petals or blooms. The best practice is to admire the trees from the sidewalk, bench, or lay down a picnic blanket in a grassy area. Fun fact, the Japanese word for picnicking under a cherry blossom tree is hanami. Take a beat, be present, and let the beauty surround you. Sounds nice, right? Transportation is the last piece of the puzzle. Parking around the tidal basin is quite limited. Parking garages are available but expensive. To avoid the headache, you can take the metro, taxi, or rideshare. Electric scooters and bikes have become widely available around the city and are relatively affordable too. Now you're ready for a day beaming at the blossoms. Enjoy!
That was the newest member of the WUSA9 weather team, meteorologist Grace Thornton. It took a lot of work to get cherry trees in D.C.
Yeah, that's right. Up next, we're looking back at the history of these iconic trees.
Okay, we're not the only ones that can enjoy iconic cherry blossoms. Cherry blossom season started in Japan March 19th. That's about 5 days earlier than average. The Japanese Meteorological Agency examines a specific tree to tell if the season has in fact started.
Yeah, it's just like our indicator tree at the tidal basin. Now in Japan, it has to have more than 5 blossoms to be considered for the season underway. Now during this check, there were 61 blossoms.
So the National Cherry Blossom Festival is, about more than just cherry blossoms, okay? It's a celebration of the friendship between the people of the United States and Japan.
Yeah, that's right. Mary Marshall shares the highlights of how the iconic trees first came to D.C.
The National Park Service says the mayor of Tokyo, Yukio Ozaki, donated 2,000 trees to the district in 1909. But when they reached the States, many of the trees were too diseased to be planted. So Japan sent more than 3,000 new trees. They arrived on March 26, 1912, and started being planted the very next day. A few dozen of those original trees still bloom on the tidal basin each year. For the first few years after the trees were planted, small ceremonies were held to mark the anniversary of Japan's gift. That evolved into the first public cherry blossom festival in 1935. It expanded from 1 week to 2 weeks of celebrations in 1994.
Okay, the National Cherry Blossom Festival is pet friendly. Now you do have to keep your pet on a leash, clean up after them. Organizers ask you to only bring well-behaved, friendly pets with you, which makes sense because of the large crowds. And also try not to let your pet use the bathroom around the trees.
Yeah, and another important note, vets warn against letting your pets eat the blossoms, seeds, or leaves. Parts of the trees can actually be toxic if dogs eat them.
It's the pits of the cherries, it's the stems and the leaves that are the most toxic. And so the good news here is that when the dogs eat the petals, it's not enough toxin to actually affect them. And so even though cherry blossoms can be a potential toxin to dogs, it's not very common.
Watch for symptoms like an upset stomach, excessive panting, red gums, or muscle spasms. You'll want to get your pet to the vet right away if they start acting strangely and you think they've eaten any part of the cherry tree. Now, there's another place to see the blooms that aren't on trees.
Yeah, so Jacqueline Quinn stopped by Audi Field where kids are seeing the cherry blossom artwork come to life.
Cherry Blossom's really the headliner here, but also now we have this artwork by DC students, and this is really coming into bloom, blossoming here, and that's why I'm going to have Shane Wells. He is the VP of Communications Affairs for Events DC, and I see that you're holding a cleat here. Right. That's right. Tell us what exactly happens with the cleat.
Sure. Well, Events DC is proud to sponsor the 3rd annual Cherry Blossom Kicks for Kids. We have 150 students that have sent in designs for this cleat. Cherry Blossom themed designs. We're going to select 25 kids to have their cleats displayed at none other than the World Famous Union Station.
And this event, this is a great one because you have artists that come in to help design or help them paint it, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, we're excited to unlock students' creativity in all 8 wards of the city. And also connect them to the National Cherry Blossom Festival. Events DC is a huge sponsor of the parade every year, and this is just expanding the festival in all its glory to our young people.
And after today, this is actually going to be on display.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We're proud to partner with Union Station to display them there for all to see. We want you to know how talented our kids are, and also we want you to come see the cherry blossoms.
And you can go see them today, but there are a number of events, so tell us what we can look forward to.
Sure. Well, Peak Bloom is coming up. Don't miss that. We also have Petapalooza coming up, and then, of course, the parade is in April. So you'll want to make sure you'll stay tuned to WUSA9 and our website to make sure you know when that is, and come on out and see us.
That was Jacqueline Quinn reporting. Now, there are tons of local artists showing off their cherry blossom-inspired creations during the National Cherry Blossom Festival. Check them out on a special Cherry Blossom edition of Get Uplifted. It's streaming right here on WUSA9+. Now, clearly, our area embraces the cherry blossoms, so let's talk about how to capture the perfect picture.
Okay, so meteorologist Grace Thornton has tips to get the best shot without touching or hurting the trees.
We've all heard the expression, the picture just doesn't do it justice. But when it comes to cherry blossoms, we all want our pictures to show off what the DC area has to offer. Here are WUSA9's top tips for taking the most vibrant and scenic cherry blossom pictures over the next couple of weeks. First, the early morning is going to be the best time to get photos. Not only is the light low and soft, but because the crowds won't filter in until later. Second, try to keep your backdrop simple. Low-angled shots with the sky in the background will show off the cherry blossoms in detail. If you can, golden hour at sunset is the best lighting to bring out pink tones in the flowers. Third, you don't need a professional camera to get great shots. Your cell phone can be just as good. Switch between modes in your camera app depending on what you want to show. iPhone and Android will both have similar settings. Portrait mode will zoom in really tight for very detailed photos of the blooms. Panoramic mode will show you all your surroundings in one shot. And night mode is useful if you want to take pictures in low light. Good luck, and feel free to send us your cherry blossom photos here at WUSA9 so we can share them with everyone.
That was meteorologist Grace Thornton, and here's how to send in those photos. Scan this QR code you see on your screen, and a link will pop up to join our Weather Watchers Facebook page. And once you're in, you can post your photos and videos.
And if you're not on Facebook, we still love to see your pictures, so text them to the number on your screen. It is 202-895-5599. No matter how you send in your pictures, be sure to include your name and location, and then we can give you a shout out when we share them on the air.
Yeah, and you can find pretty much everything we've covered in the last half hour in our complete cherry blossom guide on our website, WUSA9.com. Just scan the QR code you see there on your screen. If you would like that link right now, then you'll have all the information you need to plan out how you want to celebrate cherry blossom season right at your fingertips. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this special of cherry blossom fun. I'm meteorologist Caitlin McGrath.
And I'm Chief Meteorologist Topper Schutt. Enjoy the blooms.